And honestly, I was the same way too, and I'm still growing in that. But the main thing is God, honestly, like, because I know that God will have you start, and He says He's going to give you next steps. So I wouldn't even worry about next steps. A lot of times, like, He just orchestrates like that first like step for you, which is amazing to see because it's happened so many times in my life at this point, to where you can just like really trust the process, and like what's for you is going to come, and the ideas are going to continue to flow. And as long as you're praying for like, you know, beautiful ideas to continue to be there, and for your name to be brought up in rooms that you don't know about yet, like stuff like that, if as long as you're trusting in that and trusting in God, like, you have nothing to worry about. The first step is all you need to take care of, and He got you the rest of the way.
Welcome, Melanated Married Millionaires in the making and friends, to another impactful episode. We're about to go through and highlight a melanated married couple, or just go through some lessons that we got. Make sure y'all tap in with the conversation. Queen, where can they go to tap in?
TheeM4Show.com.
Yes, ma'am. And make sure y'all follow us on Instagram. Queen, where can they follow us on Instagram?
TheeM4Show.
Now, if y'all haven't liked and subscribed, it would make the Queen very, very happy. If you can go ahead. Very? What should they do?
You should go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
It's free, and your first step to becoming a millionaire. Go ahead and click that button. And let's get into the show.
Let's do it.
To be back, Queen. Obviously, it was great to be on vacation, but we are finally back in person in America, live and full effect.
Still not home, but
not home. But look, podcast folks, we miss you. I know we were still doing some type of podcast abroad, but we weren't full stream, we weren't live, we didn't have guests, we didn't have Jair on there, we didn't have the prayers. It was just, there was energy elements that were missing. So it's good to be back. And something that was kind of a reoccurring point of discussion on our vacation, Queen, was what? Think about it.
Real estate?
Real estate was definitely a reoccurring theme.
We talked about so much.
We did talk about a lot. We talked about a lot. But one for sure reoccurring topic was the budget. Right? Like whether
you brought up. Yep.
Yeah. The Queen doesn't worry about the budget. And that's why we had to bring on a guest to help me in this budgeting conversation, right? But something that definitely allowed us to travel, period, and allowed us to buy real estate, allow us to have our business, is the fact that we've been budgeting.
Yeah.
And I think it was easier for us to budget when we didn't have a lot of money. When we were, well, maybe for me specifically, right? Because you've been balling with your engineering job. But me specifically, when I was making my $40,000 a year and trying to do a lot with that $40,000, budgeting was a necessity. I think the more income and the more streams we started to have, the less, at least perception-wise, budgeting has been important, because it's like, oh, well, we have it, so we don't have to worry about budgeting. Yeah. But I think we need to, for us, get refreshed in sticking to a budget, having the streams of income, but still knowing specifically that some money's going here, some money's going there, and just being better with budgeting. So that's why we brought a guest, y'all. First episode back to start off April Financial Literacy Month. We're going to be talking today about how you can create a budget, and how building confidence in your budget can also lead to reducing anxiety, reducing stress, and just overall better quality of life. Queen, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You are?
I am. Do I need to sit a little closer to the mic?
You do need to sit a little closer to the mic so they can hear your amazing frequency, your amazing voice. No need to sing. There's no need to sing. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Over 50% of Black Americans are unmarried, and only 2% of Black families in America have a net worth over $1 million.
We are on our journey to not only join that 2%, but grow that 2%.
Facts. I'm Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, with my beautiful co-host.
I'm Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd. You can go to our website at TheeM4Show.com, our Instagram at TheeM4Show, and our YouTube channel at Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making.
and welcome to the M4 Show. Welcome, family. My name is Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, and this is the Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making show. As usual, I have my world traveling, my smiling, my cheetah print, swaggy, feisty queen herself. Please introduce yourself.
What is up, everybody? My name is Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd. And yes, we have been traveling.
I've been traveling.
It is bittersweet to be back.
Yeah. Bittersweet. The sweetness is being back here live with y'all and about to get into a really good podcast episode. So like we said, like budgeting is very important. It helped us do a lot of things as far as travel, buy real estate, but it also can cause some stress, right? So we want to make sure that we are putting you all and putting ourselves in a situation where we are stress-free or reducing stress-free. You like that
Okay.
word?
It was the way you said it.
What I said?
You said stress-free.
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 We are stress-free, reducing anxiety and just giving everybody the confidence and the ability to live their best life. So we brought on a guest, and I found this guest from a podcast that we were actually on. We were on Kyler's podcast, right? Dope platform. Shout out to Kyler. And I was going through his Instagram, just looking at other people that he had the podcast, watching clips, a little stalkerish, not go front. But I saw this one clip and I was like, ooh, I like that. Mm-hmm. So I saw this clip of Jada, the budget coach. And what she does is she helps and coaches ambitious women to live their best life, reduce anxiety, and gain financial stability. And I was just like, I love what you're about. And I think our audience, our melanated married millionaires, can definitely get some value. So let's please welcome in the brain behind Green Line Planner, Miss Jada. Welcome to the podcast. There she is. Hey, how you living today? Are you unmuted?
I should be. Can you hear me?
Here we go. Yes, we can. Where are you calling in from?
I am actually in Norfolk, Virginia at the moment.
Okay.
Yes. Not where I'm from, but where I stay. So.
Where are you from?
I'm actually from Los Angeles, California. And, I actually know Kyler because we went to UCSD together. So.
Small world, right? What took you out to good old Virginia?
Actually, my dad's side of the family is out here. So my grandparents, cousins, uncles, aunties, like everyone's out here. So I wanted to learn this side of the family a lot more.
There we go. That's love. So get into it. There's so many things that we can talk about when it comes to budgeting. But I'm curious on what led you to being a budget coach. It's very specific, very niche. Not in a disrespectful way, but I don't think as a kid people grow up like, I'm going to be a budget coach, right? So how did you stumble upon like this profession?
It's kind of like a long story. It's like my life story, really. Basically, just growing up, I'd seen how my mom was with money, and no shade to her, but she wasn't the best with money always. And it was kind of like an anti-example. And I knew that I didn't want to feel the same stress that she was feeling. And I kind of seen how it was more of like a reactive type of a situation rather than a proactive. And so I knew that if I could learn as much as I possibly could about managing finances, then I could be in a better spot and have less reaction and potentially avoid a lot of the mistakes that she made. And so I basically just did that for myself. It was more or less like a personal goal of mine. And then when I got to college, I actually interned at the Black Resource Center there, and we had to put on we had to host about like maybe 3 like events per quarter. And one of the events that I put on was a budgeting event, just because naturally that's what I like to do. And a lot of people showed up, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, this is actually a need. Like I didn't realize how much of a need it was until people came, and then the feedback that I got was amazing. They were like, thank you so much, Jada. Like I can't wait to really implement this into my lifestyle. And they wanted more. They were like, when's the next one? And so I was like, okay. And then shortly after that, that's when COVID hit. So I wanted a way to continue to help out the students. And at that point, I was kind of like already just my mind was going on how I could get more of this information out. And so I decided to create a budget planner and sell that, since I couldn't meet with people one-on-one and do the in-person events. So I created that on Canva and submitted it. And I don't know how I published my own budget planner, but we got there and I figured out websites and stuff, and everything kind of just like fell into place. But I kind of knew, I was like, okay, well, I know how my people in our generation are. They're going to pick up something for like 2 seconds and then put it down and forget about it. And so I was a little nervous about that. And plus I kind of understood, well, I really did understand how budgeting is it's more than just calculating numbers. So I didn't want to just throw a budget planner at them and say, figure out how to use it, and then just let that be my last interaction. I wanted to dive a lot deeper and help them out, because I knew money really connected to every other part of their lives, and also like their view of themselves and the view of the future and their ambition and what they think is possible for themselves. So I wanted to make sure that I was talking to people and getting them to understand the perspective of money that I had, because I felt like I had a very unique and positive perspective on it, rather than a negative one that we typically see in terms of like being broke or not having enough, and feeling like you can't reach a certain thing because you can't afford it.
Yeah. Look, we are 3 minutes in, and there was so many gems
Right.
in that first part, and I don't want to let that go over people's heads, right? So first thing that I want to kind of just reaffirm is the fact that you took a potential negative experience with budgeting, right? We talked about, your mom. I think we've talked about like the health journey or even the marriages of our own families and how we've experienced that and flipped it. And been able to learn from that process and then teach others. So huge, shout out to you to be able to have the maturity to be like, okay, I see what my mom's doing, and I want to make sure that my life and my kids' life is a step up from that. Are there any, before I go back to other gems that you dropped, are there any specific examples or experiences that you remember growing up that really cemented like, okay, my mom does this? And again, no shade, no disrespect to mom. It's all a learning experience. But are there any like examples or stories that are standing out to you where it's like, oh, I experienced this, and I want to make sure I learn from that moment?
Yes, there's definitely a couple. But the main one is my great grandmother had passed away, and she left us all an inheritance financially. And I was kind of banking on that money I had made my own plans. And then when I asked her for it later, because she told us that she was holding it for us, I realized that she used it for something else. And so I kind of felt betrayed, and I didn't really feel like, she asked me about it, but it was one of those situations where it's like, well, you wanted to keep a roof over your head, I had to use it. So it's like, I understand, but there were so many other decisions made. I'm like, okay, if we were that low on money, then why were you, having us eating out, and why were you buying this when it wasn't necessary? And so it was just like, I seen how we did have money coming in, but at the same time, it was the lack of being able to know how to manage it and actually like keep it or like plan it out for the things that were necessary and prioritize our necessities that really made us kind of, like I said, go into that reactive stage rather than being proactive about the situations that we were getting into. So
nice. Yep, nice. And sorry for your loss for grandma. Shout out to grandmas worldwide.
It's okay. Yeah, it was my great grandmother, so I'm very blessed to have met her.
Wow. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right. And then something else you talked about in your journey was the fact that you went to UC San Diego and you did what you needed, right? You had the budget plan that you created for yourself, and you were like, you know what, let me just do a workshop for something that I need. And people show up. If not, I did this for me, so I'm all good. And luckily or not, like people showed up. And from that one kind of experience, usually just shooting your shot and doing something, you've now built an entire business out of that. Can you talk to the person right now who has an idea, right? They have an idea. Maybe it's budgeting, maybe it's health coaching, dancing, but they're in their own head and they haven't done anything as far as doing a workshop or producing a product. How did you motivate yourself to just do something and make it real?
I would say honestly, like life is so short. It's a why not type of a situation. And you have to think about the worst thing that can possibly happen, which is no one buys your things or no one pays attention to what you're talking about. Or maybe you get a little bit of backlash or negative comments. Like that's the worst that can happen. And so the way that I was really looking at it was more or less like, I get one life. I'm going to shoot as many shots as I possibly can, and one is going to go in. And so I felt like this was a why not type of a situation. And and the thing that I really can say to start that first step, because I know the first steps are usually the hardest, is to really understand that it's bigger than you. And that's another thing that I understood too. I'm like, okay, if I'm struggling with this and I see what my, past was like and how I'm able to help myself in the future, I can only imagine how many other people are going through this. And so it was more or less of, okay, Jada, get out of your own head, because it's not all about you. It's like I had to really go further and push past my own fear and say I can help so many people if I just get over this one little fear, putting myself out there. And it really did, like, it was reinforced that that decision was the best decision I could have possibly ever made.
Nice. That mindset, I think, is so important. It takes folks some time to get there. So I think it was really good that you had that experience kind of early on. My question is, how did you get from, okay, you had the workshop, you chose budgeting because that's something that was familiar to you, right? What you knew. The feedback was good. How did you get from that to, okay, I'm going to create a planner? Like what, and your logic was all very sound, and I'm super impressed that, like, again, as a college student, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know that I would have been making these decisions. But like you said, okay, I'm not going to be able to meet with people one-on-one. So the planner is the next step. Like, how did you get to creating a planner? Was it something that you had already like jotted down for yourself and you just took that and put it into something that other people could do? Like, walk me through your thought process and kind of the steps to how you got from, I did a workshop, people liked it, and I'm going to create a planner out of it.
Sure. Yeah. I really love tangible things. I'm a very much so like pen and paper type of person. And so I mean, it was COVID time one. So this was really like a project that I was like, well, I have nothing else to do. But really, like, the idea, one, I always knew that I wanted to publish a book. This is technically not like the type of book that I was originally thinking about, but I always knew I wanted something like that out there to where it could be on someone's shelves or in their homes. And so it was really nice to turn this idea into something that was like, okay, I can help all these other college students by selling a tangible thing that is actually going to help them be better with their finances and plan out how they can even stretch their money in this COVID time. So I was really thinking about something that was tangible. And I had printed out at the workshop, I printed out worksheets for them to start filling their things in. And they took those home and they asked for more of them to continue. So that's why I really got the idea. And I was like, okay, well, if they were liking the worksheets and they wanted more to take home, I might as well just like put a whole bunch of worksheets in a book and give it to them so they could last them a couple months. And then I just started working on it, did a lot of research, and it took me about 6 months to create the planner. And I really wanted to make sure I took my time on it. So there were so many different drafts and proofs in my room that I still have. And I'm like, I don't even want to get rid of it, but I got to make space for it, I guess. So yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool. And I published through Amazon, Amazon KDP. So shout out to them too, because that was cool.
One thing I want to touch on that you said is that you had the workshop, you had the worksheets, right? It was all for the workshop. And right. Based on the fact that people liked the workshop and they asked for more, that's what led you to the planner. You didn't necessarily know that that was going to be the next step coming into it. Right. And that's important for someone like me to hear, because I'm such a planner. It's like I want to know steps A through Z before I even get in the pool. Like before I even get to step A, I need A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Whereas most of the time, if you just get to step A, step B will become a lot clearer, right? It will just naturally come. And so I didn't want to touch on that like, you just got to start. I literally was having lunch with one of my sorority sisters, and, we were talking about, like, how do you start something new? And I was just kind of trying to tell her the same thing. Like, you just got to start. Like, the rest of it will become a little bit clearer. Like, the vision's a little blurry before you start, but once you get a little bit closer, right? Once you actually step up to the starting line, then the finish line becomes a little bit clearer. And then as you start running, it becomes a little bit more clear, but you don't need to see the finish line in order to get started in the race. So I just wanted to touch on that, because I think that was a really important nugget that I took away from what you were saying.
Yes, come on. Yeah. That's what we like. That's what we like. That's what we need.
And honestly, I was the same
Right?
way too, and I'm still growing in that. But the main thing is God, honestly, like because I know that God will have you start, and He says He's going to give you next steps. So I wouldn't even worry about next steps. A lot of times, like He just orchestrates like that first like step for you, which is amazing to see because it's happened so many times in my life at this point, to where you can just like really trust the process and like what's for you is going to come, and the ideas are going to continue to flow. And as long as you're praying for like beautiful ideas to continue to be there and for your name to be brought up in rooms that you don't know about yet, like stuff like that, if as long as you're trusting in that and trusting in God, like you have nothing to worry about. The first step is all you need to take care of, and He got you the rest of the way.
Yeah,
Amen.
I like
Amen.
that.
All right. So I know we have a few people that are listening and watching live. If you don't know, we got Jada with us right now from Green Line Planner. Y'all can go to greenlineplanner.com to learn more about what she has, her tool in order to help you. And actually, while we're on the topic, and if you're listening, watching, feel free. You can put any type of question in the comments, and if we can, we will get to them live. But if people wanted like a sneak peek into what's in the Green Line Planner, can you explain some of the elements? I don't know if they're activities, worksheets, but just explain if people buy the planner and it gets mailed to their house, what should they expect when they open it?
So the planner, it's actually it's structured by paycheck, and that because my whole system is budget as soon as you get paid, because that's when your money comes in, and you want to plan for the money to go out before you actually send it out. So my whole thing is budget as soon as you get paid. So it's 12 paychecks. So if you get paid bi-weekly, that's going to be lasting you for 6 months. And then if you get paid weekly, 3 months, monthly, then it's going to last you for a whole year. And inside, it actually has a letter from me and also my personal budgeting tips. It has a fixed expense calendar for you to just write out all the bills that you know are going to come out. So you can just quickly flip to that page and say, okay, it's the 13th. I know this bill is coming tomorrow. And so it helps you remember those bills. Also, there's goal setting, because goals are very, very, very important. You need to see the bigger picture so you know exactly what you're doing on a minute scale. And so it gets really detailed. And also there's like self-reflection. There's like a what do you call, like a checklist that you are able to put down like your current information, and then you do one at the end of the planner so that you can reflect back and see how you've grown over those paychecks. So it's definitely very introspective, and that's really what I like to push for finances, because finances, they're so connected to who we are, the way we spend, the way, like you can really tell what a person does in a day by just looking at their bank statements. And you can really see the type of personalities that people have by what they spend their money on and stuff like that. And so it gets really deep about who you are. And so that's why it's really important to look within and be really self-reflective and self-aware when it comes to your finances. And there's also journal prompts every time, and it asks you specific questions like what type of lies were you told about money, and what are the truths, and how can you kind of continue to remind yourself of that. So there's a lot of deep stuff in the planner that makes it more than just like, oh, let me calculate some numbers, like it's that, because it's important. But it gets way deeper than that.
Right. And I think understanding more that money is emotional and money is spiritual helps you attract more money and keep more money. Like when you truly understand that it is an emotional and spiritual kind of transaction. What is talking about, a lie that you've maybe heard about money in your journal? What is a lie that you feel like most people need to unlearn when it comes to money and when it comes to mastering budgeting? Yeah, what's a lie? I know that's kind of random, but what do you think?
No worries. I would say the number one lie is that kind of like where you start is where you stay, and the fact that if you're broke, then it's hard to get out of that. And also that having a lot of money, like rich people are evil or bad, because that's not the truth.
Yeah.
It's really not the truth. And really, like the more money you get, the more it's just going to bring out what was already in you. And so if you're naturally a giver, then you're going to be even more of a giver when you make more money. And another one is, and I heard you talk about it before on the intro, the more money you have, the less there is a need for a budget. Or even people believe the opposite as well. The less money you have, the less need, because they're like, well, I don't have that much. What is there to budget? So you need a budget no matter how much money you're making. Whether you're making $1, you need to make a plan for it. Whether you're making $1 million, you need to make a plan for it, just so that you're being very intentional about each dollar that is coming in and going out.
Love it. So we are going to take a short commercial break, Miss Jada. It'll be like a minute long. So if you need some water, a little break, catch your breath, feel free. And when we come back, I want to get into more specific tips, strategies. Really want to make sure that people listening, people watching are able to walk away with things that they can start practicing. All right. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
Good, Queen. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Let's take a quick commercial break and we will be right back. Look, we're going to get right back into the amazing podcast. But if you didn't know, in 2017, we created Black Wall Street, the board game, because we thought more families needed to know about the history of Tulsa Black Wall Street. More families needed to know about the legacy of Black excellence left behind of Tulsa Black Wall Street, that we can own a Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Salon. We can have a Booker T. Washington High School. We can have an Uncle Steve's Barbecue. We can have a Renaissance man like Simon Berry, who had his own taxi service and bus service that got bought out by the city of Tulsa. We have brilliance in our DNA. We wanted to make sure that your family can play a game that teaches them about this brilliance. So we have Black Wall Street, the board game, right here. We had the first edition available in 2017. That got sold out. We're on the second edition right now, or you can get the beautiful masterpiece version of the game as well. It's up to you. Head to playblackwallstreet.com and get yourself Black Wall Street, the board game, to empower you, your family, and generations to come. Playblackwallstreet.com. Let's get back to the episode.
And we're back. So getting back into like some tangible things that people can walk away with. Miss Jada, what would you say are your top 3 budgeting strategies?
Okay, so if you've never budgeted before and to really kind of get your feet wet and to jump into it, number one thing is you have to know what was being done in the past so that you can make better decisions in the future. So the first thing I would suggest is to print out like the last 3 months of worth of your bank statements and review them. And I call this the highlighter method because I say gather up all your highlighter colors and assign each color a category so that when you go through each transaction, you just simply highlight it. And it's actually pretty fun and therapeutic, like coloring in a coloring book. But when you see, it's really fun, I promise. But when you go through each transaction, you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's food. Okay, that's bills. Okay, maybe subscriptions. And when you take a step back and you look at all the colors, you can see what color you see the most, right? So it tells you what you're spending most of your money on. And then you're able to tally up how much you're actually spending on each category. And then you're able to analyze, okay, do I really want to be spending that much on that? Or maybe I could spend a little bit more money here. And then I would also, number 2 for a budgeting strategy is to make sure that you know yourself. Because when I coach my clients, I don't do a cookie cutter type of system. Like I really listen to who they are, what their habits are so that they can help themselves. And to give you an example, for me, I like my Target runs. So if I go to Target and I have my card on me, it's not going to be pretty. So I kind of make a list of what I want. And then I kind of estimate how much I'm going to spend. And I take cash out and leave my card in the car. So I do not go over that limit that I set for myself, just so I can put a barrier between myself and my habits. So it's really about knowing yourself so you can help yourself out in the future. So like,
hold on, we got that was really good. You said you put a barrier between you and your habits.
Yes.
Find that whole thing. That was really good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So really, I was reading a book and it's helping me understand habits. And so this is how I got to this conclusion. It's really about understanding that there is a trigger and then the habit and then the reward. So if you put a barrier between yourself and a trigger or yourself and your habit, then you're able to then kind of like lessen the effects of that habit if it's a negative habit, especially. So when I go to my Target runs and I tend to overspend, I know what my triggers are. It's just really like going through and seeing all the beautiful things. And I'm like, okay, I need this and I need this. And I'm calling them my needs, but they're really just wants. And so I knew what was happening. I was spending and swiping my card because it's very easy. So in order to limit myself and put that distance, I said, okay, well, cash, once you run out, it's done. You don't have any more. So I was able to then kind of create this system for myself for when I went shopping to put a limit on it, take out something that was going to physically limit me, and then leave my card in the car. So I can definitely, continue to have that self-discipline that is set outside of myself. Because sometimes, you can make excuses and talk your own ear into doing what you know that you're not supposed to be doing.
Oh, that's a fact.
Very easy to
Target
do.
or Target has the whispers in the aisle.
Right.
Whispers.
Hey, girl. You know you need this lamp.
This lamp.
My house is fully lit. I need 0 lamps.
0. But that's really good. And was that from Atomic Habits? It sounds like Atomic Habits.
No, I'm looking on my bookshelf right now. It's the Power of Habit. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
It's a similar
similar type of vibe
out in Atomic Habits. So that tells you it's the truth.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like trying to think, like, what can I use that for?
Right, that same method.
What do you do that when we go to restaurants?
Hello.
Oh, we also need to be careful though with inflation. We might end up washing dishes if we didn't bring up.
Right. That's why you leave it in the car, not at home.
I'll just be right.
Right.
That was two strategies. All right, what's the strong number 3?
Is to pay attention to your finances and don't run from them. So I know that a lot of times, if it's something that's scary, we don't really want to look at it. We kind of just want to be like, if I don't look at it, it's just going to go away. It's not going to go away. So definitely like look at your bank statements, look at your online bank account every day. And the reason why I say every day is just so that you can have a mental check. Okay, this is where I am. This is where I am. And I know where I can go. And that's really all about like checking in with yourself and checking in with your finances. So for me, it was really helpful because when I was first starting out, I didn't know some of the transactions that were coming out. And I'm like, oh, I forgot I had that subscription. And so it's allowing you to like catch little things. And also like back in the day, like when, the gas stations weren't that secure, my mom, she would put her credit card into the gas station thing and pay for her gas. And then we would automatically end up with all these charges on our card. So it was that also was like one thing for me is like, okay, well, how am I going to know if like things are going wrong if I don't know what's going on with my finances? I'm not taking the time out to check in with it. So that's a huge thing, is to just like, the more you know about it, the more that you have the power to control it and change your situation. So definitely do not run from trying to know as much as you possibly can about your finances.
Nice. I'm gonna ask you, it may sound like a sidebar question, but I'm pretty sure it's in alignment, right? So our audience is Melanated Married Millionaires. So they are hopefully budgeting or creating a finance strategy together.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, growing up, my parents had almost separate finances. Like they split things 50-50. One parent might cover the mortgage, another parent might do groceries, one parent might do vacations, another parent might do school clothes, but like literally it was split down the middle 50-50, no shared accounts or anything like that. What is your advice as a coach, specifically with women? What advice do you maybe give to married couples as far as having joint finances, joint budget, separate finances, separate budget, a mix of the two? Just wondering your personal kind of perspective and stance on that.
Yeah, this actually is a conversation that I have a lot. And I would definitely say a mix of the two is great because it kind of allows you to have that unit factor and then also like that independence factor. And I've seen couples do this in a couple different ways, whether they have like a joint account and then they each have their like separate set amounts that they can spend on whatever they want. Because to one person in the marriage, something might be very important, but then the other person's like, why? How is that even important? Like, we don't need that. But then somebody else on the other hand be like, okay, well, this bag is really cute and I really want this. So having your separate like spend money on whatever you want is actually really good to have that sense of independence and say, you know what, I get to spend this, and hey, we all know what it's meant for. And then having that joint account for things that are like bills and stuff like that is really good, because then you're able to sit down and have a conversation about it. And it does bring you together to talk about your finances rather than having it separate and feeling like somebody has to pay somebody back, or, hey, what are you going to cover this time? And like not really knowing. So it adds a level of trust in there and adds a level of communication when you do have a joint account. But then also having the separate amounts that you can spend on whatever you want individually actually is really, really good to continue to keep that sense of independence and not feeling like you have to ask your partner every single time you want to purchase something for yourself. So Yes, it's kind of a both thing, but I feel like that's the way that a lot of couples go about it. That's the way that I would recommend, only because it really does leave room for all that and then some. Like it's a little bit of both, so you get best of both worlds, basically.
All right, see, Sinclair, let me spend my hundreds of dollars on books. All right,
and then
that's
get my
problem.
massages.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we out here. We out here. So something a budgeting kind of rule that we've followed. I feel like we used to follow it very, very strictly. Again, now that we have extra income, perception wise, we stopped being so tight on the budget. But after this episode, we're gonna have a budgeting retreat sometime in April, and we get back to it. I know you're excited about it, Quinn. I can see
you
it.
See the excitement on my
it's
face?
Oozing. You're just like, ooh, budgeting retreat. Talk to me. But a rule that we teach and that we used to follow is the 50-30-20 rule.
Okay.
So 50% of your monthly income goes towards your needs, 30% of your monthly income goes towards your wants, and 20% of your monthly income goes towards your freedom or paying off debt. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a type of formula that you promote with your community as far as how much of your income or how much of your budget should be going towards your insurance, your mortgage, your food, how much should be going towards purchasing that bag or going to Target? Is there a kind of an equation that you work with your clients with?
I actually don't. And the reason why is because I don't want people to feel stressed. It's kind of like if you are starting a journal and you're like, okay, I'm going to journal every single day, and then you don't make that journal that one day, then you're like, dang, and you're kind of beating yourself up about it when, like, honestly, life happens. So I really try not to put like super structured things like that. And I really tell them balance with your finances is all about how you feel. Like if you feel way more balanced when you are spending more money on that bag rather than spending money on like making an investment, then that's what you want to do. And the thing about it is, like, you have to understand the big picture. Like if it doesn't fit to your big picture goal, then obviously I'm going to like try to tweak it and like say, okay, maybe we can hold the bag for now and, you know, save up over time so you can get the bag. But it's really all about like balancing.
Are breaking bank accounts. I don't know if you bought a Telfar bag yet, but these Telfar bags, y'all.
Yes, they are breaking it. I have not bought one because of that. Okay. But I would say, honestly, you have to really just put it into perspective of priorities. And that's what I do first. So I'm saying, okay, as long as you know that you have your basic living necessities paid for, after that, then you can make sure that you're saying, okay, now I want to kind of play and I want to put some in investments. I want to put some in just like spending money, and I want to put some in maybe like an account for retirement. So things like that. I definitely say make sure that it feels good to you rather than kind of trying to follow a rule, because it's, you know, it's a cookie cutter. So not everybody, you know, situation is the same. So even if you're making like a lot less money, but you're trying to live on your own, your rent might be way more than 50%. And your like bills combined. So it's kind of all about your situation, where you're going, and how you feel, rather than 50-30-20. But it is really good as like a starting point. If you don't know anywhere to go, I would say these are like starting guidelines. And once you kind of get the hang of being able to separate the needs and the purposes for your finances, then you can kind of create your own.
Greatness. Queen, did you have something? Look like you might have been very excited about this budget retreat and you want to ask her a question.
Any flinch for like, you want to say something? I promise you, I will breathe. And he'll be like, what'd you say?
What was that?
You sounded like you were going to say something. But I did actually have a question of like, what?
See, I know you.
So you're obviously very knowledgeable about what it takes to create a budget, what it takes to be financially savvy and stable. Where did you get all of your knowledge from? Right? Because based on what you said earlier, this is not something that was like passed down to you, right, from your childhood. So where did you actually learn all of this stuff? You're serving as that person for a lot of other folks. What books, what tools, like what courses, how did you get this knowledge for yourself?
Honestly, it was a lot of books, and it's not just the finance books like Think and Grow Rich, like stuff like that. It's really like books like lifestyle books like The Power of Habit and like this other self-help book that I'm reading called Good Vibes, Good Life. It's really about things that are outside of money that you can apply to money because you see how money is reflective of a lot of your personal habits and perspectives. So when I was reading a lot of these books, I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. And I was like, okay, wait, I'm managing my time. I can manage my finances in the same way and make sure that I'm accounting for every single hour, like I'm counting for every dollar, and making sure that it has a purpose and there's intent there. And then my money is going to be productive just how I can be productive. So I was really like drawing those lines and making those connections between my lifestyle and my finances. And then that's how I was really able to kind of like make everything click in sort of a sense. And then on top of that, it definitely was YouTube and then a lot of experience, a lot of trial and error. So I definitely made a lot of mistakes still, but I wanted to make those mistakes and really do a lot of the grunt work so I can then reproduce it and represent it to all the other people that I wanted to help, especially our younger generation, so that they can avoid some of those mistakes. But you're still going to be making mistakes because it's all about learning you and your lifestyle and your habits. Because again, I made some mistakes at Target before, you know. So I out of those, I'm learning more things and I'm still growing. I'm only 23, so I'm still going through some of these experiences to gather more knowledge so that I can share it with the community.
I love that.
23.
Right at 23, amazing.
Come on.
And I also love that you were saying like, okay, the learning how to budget isn't only about reading finance books, right? Because it is tied to so much of our lifestyle. And one of the things that caught my ear is when you were talking about like what you do as a budget coach, and you mentioned you help women decrease anxiety. And that was definitely different for me to hear from a finance person or from a budgeting person, the tie back to health, right? But it makes so much sense because money is a stressor, is probably a number one stressor for so many people out there. Well,
it is the number one stressor for adults in America. It is.
Yeah. So it's like, of course, it makes sense to not only address like when you're addressing your physical health, when you're addressing your mental health, unless you're addressing that financial, the financial aspect of your life, you're kind of just doing a Band-Aid fix because you got to get down to the source of the stress, right?
Exactly.
In order to really make a change. So where did that come from? Did that also come from personal experience, your own struggles with financial struggle, or was that kind of you noticing what other people around you were experiencing?
Yes, I really do have like a gift of learning from others because that's one thing. I sit back, I watch, and I learn. I'm like, okay, I seen you made that mistake. I don't want to do that. So I really do sit back and watch other people. And I seen how the problems with my mom and her spending, it wasn't just like, oh, I see a shiny object, I want to buy it. But it was like, okay, well, why are you so quick and then so impulsive to do those things? And it's truly tying back to her childhood and knowing like, okay, she wasn't afforded certain luxuries. And so she wanted to go ahead and make sure that, she was spending on things to make us happy and show us a good time. But at the end of the day, like we're suffering behind the scenes. And so I seen how like certain decisions like that were deep rooted in her own personal experiences with like mental health and just like, I guess, perspectives and outlooks on life, how they were really trickling down into how she was spending money. And plus I've always just been like a really reflective person anyway. So when I'm able to read these books, I do make those connections and I am able to see, okay, like I budget and I'm way less stressed because I already know and I can expect what to do with my money rather than saying, okay, I don't know where it went. And that's the fear of unknown, right? And so I'm even looking now like at one of my clients, I'm seeing how the lack of self-confidence is showing in the way that she doesn't spend money on herself. And when she does, it feels really guilty and she has a lot of shame connected to it. And it's really because she, at the end of the day, doesn't feel like spending money on herself is worth it. Like she's not worth the money that she's investing into herself. And so I have to uncover certain things like that. So it was really hard in the beginning. I'm like, okay, am I a lifestyle budget coach or like it was really hard because I'm like, okay, I do a lot of life coaching within the budget coaching because we have to get deep. Like we just have to. We have to get to the root of it because money, like as soon as you're born, that your money affects you and your lifestyle, like whether you're what school you go to, what neighborhood you're living in, the car that you're in when you're going to school. Like it affects all these things, even down to the clothes on your back and then how people perceive you because of that. Like there's so much that goes into it. And that's why I really do promote having that understanding that money is emotional and it is connected to everything that you do in life.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I directly connect with that story you just shared about with your client, because I feel like growing up, and my parents gave me a lot of blessings, right? But growing up, it was a very tight budget. It was all right. If you're gonna spend money on school clothes, you can only spend this much. A lot of my nice clothes I got as hand-me-downs from my cousin Brandon. Shout out to you, Brandon. Thank you for being swaggy for me. But there was a certain point where I outgrew those because I had a different body type than him, so I couldn't get those nice clothes anymore. And I feel like I kind of took that into my adulthood, to where it's like, okay, I'm only buying thrift store clothes, only buying clothes from Target. Don't buy name brand anything, because that's not like, I didn't grow up thinking that I was quote unquote worth the name brand or the budget that came with that. And I feel like I'm only recently, within like maybe the last 2 years, getting into the mode where it's like, all right, no, you know what, get what you want. Don't get what the deal is. Don't get what you think you can. Yeah, still get what you can afford, but don't get necessarily the cheapest thing. Get what you want within reason. And I feel like that's the life, the left side of the menu type life that we've got from one of our digital mentors, Jamal King, who's always like, live the best life that you can. And I think he calls it the left side of the menu. That's why we took this vacation. That's why we may go out and splurge a little bit on some things, because we feel that we are deserving of the better things in life. So,
but also we've prepared our lifestyle to be able to afford these things as well.
Right.
There's other sacrifices that we've made, right? So I feel like it's the balance of like, you can't just spend frivolously on exactly what you want all of the time if it doesn't fit your budget, right? Or if it's not something you can afford, it's only going to cause that initial dopamine response, right? It's only going to cause stress later, if it can actually afford it. But I think we've made some sacrifices in the last couple of years to be able to do this, right? This month-long trip we just went on, it was years in the making. We had that idea a couple years ago, and we're like, okay, what do we need to do in order to make that happen? We may need to downsize, which we did, right? A big sacrifice, but it has allowed us to do so much more. It's just about, again, the balance of priorities.
No, yeah, I love all that you just said, because it really is about the balance. Like if you're spending only on your needs, you're not going to feel happy and fulfilled in life. You're feeling like you're cutting yourself short and something's missing. And then if you're only spending on your wants, then your needs are suffering. So it really is like that balance. And that is a really huge factor that you said, was sacrifice. Like you have to understand, like that's a part of life. That's a part of budgeting. You're going to have to sometimes put your wants down, not all of them, but some of them at times. And it's really about that bigger picture. So the fact that you knew that this is something that you wanted and you were looking 2 years in advance, like that's great. That's what I'm trying to get a lot of my clients to do, because we're making like right now decisions and we're only seeing how things are affecting our current moment. But you have to see, okay, if you want to take a vacation and it's very possible for you, you just have to drag it out a little bit longer. You maybe have to save a little bit more over a couple more months, like, and that's totally fine. And that's really something that I'm driving into my clients too, is like anything is possible for you. It just maybe the timeline looks different, but you can do it. Like if you want to go splurge on that one item, maybe save up for the entire year. But I guess and I guarantee you too, like once you do get that thing, you're gonna feel way more excited about it because of how much sacrifice you did put in and how much planning you had to put in. So it's gonna feel even greater that you were able to do that because you actually put an investment in.
Right.
Agreed. So I know we've been throwing questions at you left and right. You've been very, very good sport at answering all. We appreciate you. We're gonna give you a little bit of a break, and we're gonna enter our Ask Declare segment. This is where you can ask us any questions about business, health for the health nut over here, or even our love relationship journey. So passing off to you, Miss Jada.
Yes. Honestly, love and relationships have been on my mind lately, and I love y'all's dynamic. So I'm trying to tie this into money as well. But I want to kind of just know, like, how was that initial conversation about finances? Like, was there ever any like arguments, or were y'all able to communicate well with it? And how did y'all still like show each other that you were prioritizing that person and their needs while also trying to like get business done?
Ooh, that's a great question. Want me to start or you want to start?
You can start.
So I think we've gone through different financial kind of situations and also different financial strategies since we've been together. You know, we've been together
For some
since
time.
the dawn of love and existence itself. No,
We go together.
We go together.
Real bad.
But we've been, together for 11 years. Budgeting wasn't always a big part of that. I think budgeting became an official part probably when we got engaged and we started actually sharing spaces and sharing a budget. And I think when we first started, the budget was 50-50, right? We weren't married yet. What I was used to was a 50-50 relationship from my parents. So I kind of brought that experience to it. And I was like, okay, let's break it up where you pay for this, I pay for that. And it was working for the most part. But back then, your girl over here was balling.
I always say that.
She had an engineering job.
Yeah.
Or a continuous improvement job.
Yeah, I wasn't even an engineer. I wasn't a studied engineer. It was continuous improvement.
She was bringing home the checks, and I was working in education, and I was making decent money. America, we're blessed, but in comparison to what she was making, it was much lower. So we didn't necessarily. The biggest, I guess, point of friction was vacation. And I think that even today is still probably the out of everything, vacation and eating out are probably the two things, because in her budget, I got it. Let's go on vacation. Let's eat out because I can afford it. But then myself looking at the 50-50 split of the budget, I was like, I don't got it. And I didn't feel 100% comfortable with her, spending 70% of the budget and me only spending 30%. So I think that was a little bit of a, what's it called?
Point of contention.
Point of contention, right. But at the end of the day, we still were able to do some traveling, still ate out, but we had to come to a agreement on how many times we eat out per month, what is the travel budget, so that we were both comfortable. Shifting from that, stage one, stage two, we're married. It wasn't quite 50-50 when we were married. I don't remember how we broke it up.
I don't know how we changed it necessarily after we got married. I think the main thing that changed for us after we got married is now we have a mortgage. But I don't know that we treated that too much differently than paying rent. So yeah, I don't know that too much changed right when we got married. I feel like more of the changes came maybe a year into that, when we started really looking at like investments, and building our investment portfolio, starting to get into investment real estate, like what money are we using for that type of thing. I feel like that's when the conversations of like a joint account started coming in.
Yeah. And that's where we're at now. We have our joint account, and this is why we need a budgeting retreat, because I think there's still some restructuring that we can do there. But some joint bills are coming out of that joint account. Some investment stuff comes out of that joint account. She has her account that does her Millie Rock and dancing. I have my account where I purchase my books and technology, and then we have our business account. And I would say still the main thing that we semi disagree on is how much to spend on vacation. The queen likes to go big, go lavish. I like to just go. So
and it's to your point, right? It's about, and this is where I think it gets interesting, and it's just literally a part of a life and a part of relationships, is once you get married, I have my priorities, he has his priorities. How do we now make these one, right? Because you do need to at some point figure out what is our priority, right? Because my priority, if I was living the single life, would probably look different than his priorities if he was also living the single life. So how do we now make that make sense when we are now one, right? So yeah, travel is much higher on my priority list than it is for his. So that is often a point of contention when it's like, I'm like, the trip is only this. I put only in front of it because I'm just like, it's travel. It's so important. It's how you see the world. Like that's such an important part of life for me. Whereas for him, it's like, it's vacation. Why are we spending this much money? So I feel like that's where the contention kind of comes from. So yeah. But I think also to his point on we've had different financial situations, so different kind of budgeting strategies is, and I'm sure this is something that you probably preach yourself, which is like you need to reassess every time there is a change in your lifestyle, right? Or every time there's a life-changing event, right? We get married, now we need to reassess. We get our first house, now we need to reassess. I quit my job, huge thing, right? Now we need to reassess. As he mentioned, I was kind of the I don't want to say the breadwinner because we were both making money, but I had gotten used to the lifestyle where I am making more money, and so I don't have to worry about like checking in for this or for that because I have enough money to cover what we need and then some, right? But now I've quit my job and now he's the breadwinner and it's a whole different dynamic that I now had to get used to. Like, okay, now I do need to like, okay, so if I want to do this or if we want to do that, like, can we make that work in the budget? Because it's not in my account right now. So can we move some things around, right? And so it's just a completely different dynamic that we needed to reassess. And I feel like our life our life and finances are constantly changing just because we do a lot. And so we need to, I think, reassess more often than we are, which is why we're talking about that budgeting retreat. But long story short, I think it is important to have a set time frame when you reassess, whether it's once a year or whether it's twice a year, whatever it's going to be and whatever it feels comfortable for you. But I do think that it is good to reassess the budget, check in, do the whole thing that you're talking about where you look at where the money's going and look at where you want it to be going, reassess those priorities every so often so that you can stay on top of it and you're not holding yourself to a standard that may no longer fit your lifestyle.
Right. Okay.
Last quick note on this, and I'm gonna say it because usually it's controversial whenever we bring this up to some people, is when it comes to finances, and we do this in our relationship where we kind of break some things up into departments, and we have a particular person who is in charge of that department, right? So when it comes to finances, spending, the budget, technically Devon is in charge of the finances. So although I don't agree with the vacation time, sometimes like we'll have a conversation, we'll get into a budget that I think is reasonable, but still allows Sinclair and myself to live our best life. And then it's like, boom, okay, this is the budget now. When it comes to health, the queen is in charge of the supplements, our diet. If I'm working too hard and it's stressful. And she's like, actually, this vacation, although it is, yes, it's finances, it's also health, and you need time off, Devon. So like we're taking this vacation. It's like, okay, queen, let's do it. So that's another thing that we've kind of come to in our relationship with finances, particularly being something that falls under my domain.
And then gender roles, it's all about where it makes sense. I'm not with money. I never necessarily have been savvy with money. Is right. And so it just makes sense for me to lean in and trust his judgment. We definitely still talk about it. I can weigh in my opinion, but at the end of the day, the end decision comes from him. And then again, like real estate, that's my realm, right? If we can talk about what we want to do with investments, but at the end of the day, I have the decision-making power in that realm. So I think that's also an important thing because if one person wants to do the other thing and the other person has a different opinion, you need to have a standard way of how you approach those situations. Otherwise, you may just never reach an agreement.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I think I would be the person in my relationship to
that would make sense.
Right. It's all about strengths and weaknesses. No, yeah, I definitely agree. Thank y'all for that insight as well.
Of course. All right. And anything else you got for us before we put the spotlight right back on you?
Yes. So I know that y'all been together for a while. And I wanted to know, like, when did y'all kind of have that conversation about what each other made? Was it kind of really early on, or did it take a little bit for that conversation to happen?
So we've been together since college. Yeah. So I mean, we've been together since literally freshman year of college when both of us were broke. I knew her financial situation very, very lightly, kind of. She knew my financial situation very transparently. And then we've cohabitated in some form or fashion throughout college. We split groceries, kind of, not formally. So I think we've always been in each other's financial situations. When we got our first jobs after college, we were still dating. We weren't engaged yet, but I mean, it was open book, right? So it's like, hey, Sinclair, I got this job. I'm making $43,000 a year working for UC Riverside. Shout out to Riverside. And then, you know, she'd be like, oh, I got my first job. I'm at this place making this much. It was always open because we were together that entire process. I know there's some couples that, you know, get together as adults and then it's like, hey, my money is my money. You don't need to be worried about how much I'm making. But I think we've been blessed that we just have been together for so long that it's never been a secrecy issue.
Yeah, I do think it's different to your point. Like if you find somebody new, you're meeting somebody new as an adult, it would probably come up later in the conversation, later in the timeline. Yeah, but for us being broke college students together, we both started from zero. So we're both trying to have each other win. I feel like we were both kind of lightly helping each other kind of figure out which job should I take? Well, you know, this is what I'm looking at. Help me make this decision. Because we always kind of, I think, knew that we were going to be in each other's future. So there's always been that transparency between us. And so, yeah, I can't say that that part has never been an issue or a point of contention of like, I don't know how much he's making or I don't know his financial situation. We've always known that and been very open about that. Because again, we've seen each other kind of grow from not having too much.
Right. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
We've had financial discussions probably in college, like first year dating. We were talking about probably more lifestyle than finances. Like what does marriage look like? How many kids do you want? Do you want a house? Where do you want to live? Do you want to work? Do you want to have a business? Like we were having those type of conversations probably the first year of our relationship, just manifesting that future. But I don't think we started talking about like hard money until after college and adulting became a real. All right, good questions. Good questions. Appreciate you. I do want to get back to spotlighting Jada and the Green Line Planner, specifically with talking about. So we've been to a lot of baby showers this year. We got a lot of friends, a lot of family having kids. Huge shout out to everybody. So I want to kind of talk about your maybe coaching tips that you have for parents who want to teach their kids budgeting. I think it's never too early to start learning about financial literacy, start learning about how to budget that $1 that you were talking about earlier, right? How to start budgeting that. So are there any tips, strategies, or activities that you would recommend parents doing with their young ones to get them start thinking about budgeting?
Yeah. One, kind of taking it. Well, let's start like really early on. You can just honestly start by having your children pay for things. So I would physically give them the cash and then teach them, say, okay, you hand the money to the lady or the man, and you give them the money for the transaction. This is how much it costs. And then they get the change back. And then they say, okay, count how much you have left. And so it's kind of getting them in the flow of, this is what a transaction is, and this is how you can check in on your finances, make sure everything's good and nobody kind of screwed you over, type of thing. And then also showing that it's okay for them to actively hand over money and make those decisions and kind of put them in the driver's seat, gives them a sense of power over money as well. And then another thing is the power of saving. So having them understand that too. So say they want something, they're asking you for something, I would kind of give them the money for it over time, but have them save it up so that they can see the power of saving. And then they're able to kind of make it click. Like, yeah, they probably want the bike. You're probably going to give it to them anyway, but like have them pay for it in the sense of saving over time is really, really, really helpful as well.
I like that. I think we're definitely, I would like to do that with our kids, Queen, like give them money over 3 months, over 2 months, and they pay for their own Disneyland ticket or they pay for their own PlayStation. I think that's fun.
I think it even practices the delayed gratification of like, oh, I want the bike. I'm not going to take, we're not getting in the car and going to get the bike right now. No.
Right.
Well, the bike costs this much. I'm going to give you $50 this month. And then you got $50 next month and then $50 the next month. And in September, we'll go to the store and we'll get you the bike.
Yeah. Right. So question for you. What's your stance on either allowance or kids doing like household chores for money? I know you. 20 in the children game for years. But what is your stance or your practice on paying kids for household activities or just a weekly, monthly allowance?
I'll talk about both. So if you're going to go the route of paying the kids for the chores, I think that it's like you want to make sure that they know that this is what you're supposed to be doing, but also like this is something that's a learning experience for you so that you can know that you have to earn the money that you work for, and that money doesn't just grow on trees and you can't just ask me for it. I'm gonna hand it over. Like you have to make them understand that you work hard for your money, and that they can work hard in order to get a piece of that pie. Without feeling like, they all have to work so hard for everything. But basically I would say just to kind of like point out that I'm doing this for a reason and not just trying to like make you do something to get the money. Like there's a lesson in here. And then if you don't, and you kind of just give an allowance, then I would stress more of like the principles of it. So saying like you give them the money and say, okay, now you have to manage it. So like that is the lesson within it. So I'm going to give you this prepaid card. I'm going to put $20 on it or in however much. And if you want something, then you want that bike, then you can pay for it. But if you didn't save up and you ended up spending that money on something else, well, then that's the reason why you don't have the bike. And so it's kind of showing them like, if you really want something, then you have to be intentional about what you're doing with your money. So I would say both routes are good, but you just have to be intentional about like which aspect of the lesson that you're giving them, and really which lesson you want to hone in on.
That's good. I feel like at some point in my childhood, Queen, I got an allowance, right? I cleaned my room. I got some money. I cleaned the dishes. I got some money to out the trash. And then I don't know if I reached a certain age.
It just stopped.
I don't know if I got fired from my allowance.
Dry.
But yeah, at some point, the money just stopped coming, Dad. I don't know what happened. I started working for free. All right. But to your point, I feel like it's interesting psychology wise. Like if you're paying your kid to wash the dishes, what if one week they don't want to wash the dishes? Are they in trouble? Do they not get the payment? Because like, yeah, that's the thing that they should be doing anyway. But thank you for giving us some preliminary parenting coaching. These are things that we need to figure out someday.
Yeah.
I feel like not soon. Whoever.
I feel like to your point, like I definitely got an allowance, but I also had weekly chores. And so I think there was that like
they weren't connected.
They weren't like completely tied. Like I was dog poop and bathroom dirt. And so, but if I just slipped up and didn't do it that week, I still got
got paid.
Yeah. So that maybe something to change for our kids so that they understand that like this work is for this money, if that's the lesson we're trying to teach.
Yeah. I mean, our kids are gonna work for our company, so if they don't work, they're not getting paid.
Yeah, I didn't have an allowance growing up. It was do the chores and you do them. But I can definitely see how like if it's not directly connected, but you didn't do your chores, like maybe I can take something away, like, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be the money, but that can be one of the things. So yeah, there's definitely that. So you can kind of do a mixture of both.
Yeah,
like that.
Another thing that's coming to mind as we wrap up the children conversation is I feel like it also can, because, I feel like kids, you just want stuff, right? You just see something, you see a cool commercial, you're like, I want that. Whereas I feel like if you give it to them right away, they'll play with it. And then the next day the next day or the next week or whatever, it's collecting dust in the corner. Whereas I feel like if they really worked for it, they probably would have a little bit more appreciation for whatever that thing is if they worked 3 months to get it, right? If I worked 3 months of picking up dog poop and cleaning bathrooms or whatever it is for 3 months to get this bike, I'm gonna ride this bike because it worked for it, right? Whereas if it's like, I want this bike and you go get it, okay, cool, well, that was fun. Now I want a truck, right? I think it can also drive home the like, do you really want this, right? Because you're not going to get it for another 3 months. So make sure you really want it. And after you've worked for those 3 months, I feel like they'll have a better appreciation for it.
Hopefully. So our final question for you, and we asked this to most of our guests. A lot of them answer it correctly. Some people don't.
There is no correct answer.
There is a correct answer, Jada. So be careful. No, I'm just kidding. Queen, would you like to ask Jada this very important question?
Do you believe that every family should have a business?
Think about it. Think about it.
My answer is going to be no.
Hmm.
And the only reason why I say that is because it's not for everyone. Like, business is just not for everyone. You have to have like a certain understanding of really what business is and also what it takes to have a business and to start it up, because it's not just like super profitable right off bat. Like, some people just don't have the personality for it or the perseverance and the strength to really like go through certain things, and the mental strength, really, because a slow season could be a slow season and that can really trip some people up. So it's really about the person. But if you can and you have the ability and you know that that's something that you actually can like withstand, I say go for it, because it is really good to have.
Gotcha.
Wise words. Wise words.
Mm-hmm. So I'm very sad to say that you're a part of the folks that answered that question incorrectly. I do like that stance. I definitely, from experience, entrepreneurship is definitely not for everybody. My stance is that if you're building wealth, particularly in America, you need multiple streams of income. So whether that's real estate, whether that's the stock market, it doesn't always have to be a business, but you need to be making money. Your money needs to be working for you in other ways, not just in your 9 to 5 or you trading time for money.
Right.
So this was good. I think we could have definitely spoke way longer. Like I can tell there was some holes that we could have like went into, but we self-control.
We left some open-ended questions for your next visit on our podcast.
Aha. Love it. A question that I do have for you as we're wrapping up, and we're going to do some quick updates on our side, and then you're going to have the last word, which is giving any words of wisdom when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to reducing your stress through preparation, anything you want to leave the audience with. But definitely, we want to make sure that people go to greenlineplanner.com to get their planner. One of many steps that you can take in securing your own financial stability. Go to greenlineplanner.com, get your planner today. My question for you, Jada, is there any type of like M4 show discount you can give people if they go to the website? Maybe they put in the code, the M4 show, and you bless them with any.
Yes, of course. Definitely.
Come on. For y'all. So we can make the code the M4 show.
Yes, I'll go ahead and do that for you right now. Yes.
Thank you. There you go, y'all. So if y'all listening live or on the replay, go to greenlineplanner.com, enter the discount code the M4 show. And we don't know what the discount is, but just know it's going to be a blessing. So make sure you take action and go ahead and get you your planner. We're going to get ours.
You got no excuses now.
Yeah, we're going to get ours for our budgeting retreat. Mm-hmm. Do you recommend that a married couple get 2, or should a married couple just get 1?
It's depending on how your finances are set up. But because it's broken up between paycheck, I would say separately.
There it is. You try and get these sales. I see you. Like every income stream you got. Get right. Love it. All right. So we're gonna do some quick updates, and then we'll go to you for the final word. Queen, any updates you have for the beautiful people?
The only update I have is, I talk every episode about the Leaders Innovating Tomorrow program. It is a 12-week financial literacy program where we go into middle schools and high schools and help students create a business, a pitch for their business that solves a problem in their household, in their community, in their school. And so we are looking for folks who want to have this program in their schools for next school year. So coming up in the fall, if this sounds like something that you would want at your school, right now we are focusing on Los Angeles and the Inland Empire, Southern California. But if you're outside of that and you're still interested, feel free to hit us up at info@playblackwallstreet.com. And yeah, we can just talk about what your needs are, see if this program will be right for your school and your scholars.
There It is. Thank you very much, Queen. Really nothing else to add on that. We are going back to Tulsa, aka Black Wall Street, aka Little Africa, August. What's the day? 10th through the 13th?
I think that sounds right.
August 10th to the 13th. Tickets will be available soon on our website. So if you do want to come, if you're an educator and you want to come to learn about the history of Tulsa Black Wall Street, learn how to talk about financial literacy and empowerment inside your classroom, definitely this trip is for you. If you are a parent and you want your students, your scholars, your offspring to know the history of Tulsa Black Wall Street and get connected directly to that legacy of Black excellence, this trip is for you. And if you are a budding entrepreneur, you just want to be around dope people, network with amazing people who are passionate about the work that they're doing, and of course, connect directly to the legacy of Tulsa Black Wall Street, this trip is for you. So go to playblackwallstreet.com, sign up for our email list so that you can get information. And most likely when this episode is live, edited, chopped up, and made available, the tickets will be available for y'all. We will be again in Tulsa, August 10th, August 13th, probably staying all in one hotel. We'll give you all that information. We'll have a good itinerary and plan worked out for y'all. All right. Now let's bring Jada back up and let's end this amazing, beautiful, impactful episode with some words of wisdom.
Yes, so the number one thing I have for y'all is to have a miscellaneous account in your budgets, because my whole thing is budgeting for every dollar that you make, because if you don't, then your money is going to make its own plan for itself. And then that's when you're kind of stressed out about it. So you really want to make sure that you're telling your money where to go every single dollar. And with that, you want to leave kind of like a room for error type of thing, or just room for unexpected expenses. So this is like number one out of my 4 different or 5 lines of defenses that I usually tell people. So have a miscellaneous account. Say you go to downtown and you got to pay for parking. You didn't put that in your budget. Now what do? You don't want to go over budget on certain things. So you really want to have a miscellaneous account. And sometimes I could call it a contingency fund just for certain things like that. And I would say usually have about anywhere between like $50 and $100 there, just to make sure it can cover any unexpected expenses. And that could also save you from going into overdraft as well, in case you get paid on Thursdays and a bill came out on that Thursday or Wednesday before your money hit your account. So definitely lines of defense to help y'all out.
There it is. That's a good one. If we do, or when we do a part 2 with you, is there a particular budgeting topic you want to do a deep dive on next time?
Ooh, I'm thinking more about money and emotions, really going deep into that. Yes.
I was thinking that too. There you go. So y'all stay tuned for Money and Emotions part 2 with Jada and the Green Line Planner. Jada, once again, we appreciate you for coming on the show.
Thank y'all so much for having me. Honestly, like Kyler did his thing.
He did great. And of course, beautiful people, we appreciate y'all for tapping in, listening, watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that, definitely like and follow. And it helps us if you can leave a review, ideally 5 stars. But if you want to tell the truth, 5 stars.
I was gonna say,
right.
5 stars. Come on.
We appreciate y'all tapping in to the Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making show. I'm your host, Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game.
And I'm Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd.
We hope y'all secure the marriage. Make sure y'all secure the love. And of course, make sure y'all secure
the bag.
Peace. Thank you for supporting the M4 show and our mission to increase the wealth of Black families.
If you received any value from this episode, any value at all, any, do us a favor and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, anything, all of them, all of them, wherever you're listening, go ahead and like and subscribe.
And after you like and subscribe, make sure you send this episode to at least one family that you really want to see win. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.